Hello and welcome to today. My name is Elian. I'm a psychologist and I want to tell you all about CBT. You probably have heard this concept. CBT is cognitive behavioral therapy. I'm going to show you an overview of CBT. So first of all, we need to know, of course, what it means. Then we're going to see the origins and main theories, then the basic elements. We'll also talk about disorders that could be benefited from CBT, and then some therapeutic techniques that are used with CBT. And historically, there are at least three main theories that have contributed to this. And one is Albert Ellis, and he created his own version of CBT. And I would say that just before we get into these three very important theories, we just need to understand that historically, psychology started focusing on measuring behavior with behaviorism. Then they decided that there was a missing element, that was all the cognitive skills and our thought process that is so important to define what we're going to do. So our behavior is not just happening in an unconscious way or based on conditioning it, but it's happening based on our reasoning skills, our rationale. That's why Albert Ellis came to with this idea of focusing on how the emotions are linked to our ration, and then of course to our behavior. So he created REBT, rational emotive behavior therapy. Then that was focused on certain elements, maybe a little bit rigid, but they focus on that he's called the grandfather of cognitive behavioral therapy because he was the one starting everything. Then came Aaron Beck a little bit later, and Aaron Beck first said, like, let's just call it cognitive therapy, and then he integrated the behavioral part. So the cognitive therapy really focused on the cognitive elements of our behavior, but without looking enough at the behavioral from the perspective of behaviorism. There's this big movement against behaviorism coming from all the people that were in favor of cognition, and that's how Aaron Beck came into figure. And he thought, for example, for eliminating depression, we have to change our distortions, our cognitive distortions. And to eliminate almost any disorder, we have to change our cognitive distortions. Then there was other people like Judith Beck, his daughter, that also talk about cognitive therapy, but she expanded it and keep on teaching on these topics. Then we have Donald Mekenbaum, and he founded another branch that it was called cognitive behavior modification. So these three elements were like the basis of cognitive behavior therapy. And they all focus on understanding how the cognitive skills make a big impact on our behavior. So Mekenbaum focused on changing clients' self-statements, because if you talk to yourself in a befitting way, or like you're a failure, you're gonna use these self-statements to change your behavior towards, oh, let's not even try because always failure, I'm not even gonna try. So the behaviors and emotions are determined by your statements, your self-statements. You have to change those according to Donald Mekenbaum. So he combined cognitive therapy with behavior therapy, and he was kind of the one that really integrated both. But of course, all of them work into this idea of the cognitive triangle, where thoughts, behaviors, and feelings are interacting with each other. And so if you change your thoughts, you'll change your behavior. But if you change your behavior, you might also be influencing your thoughts and your feelings. And that's what creates these cognitive triangles. And I'll give you an example of this. So let's say that there's an issue at the world level. And of course, that will influence who you are as a person and maybe your future. Let's say that because of the pandemic, you had lost your job. And now you're thinking like, oh, maybe, yeah, not good enough. I should change who I am. I should do something else because it's so difficult to find another job. So your belief system, it's based on what's happening around you, but of course, your thoughts will influence your emotions. So let's say that you think that there's no job for you, you're not good enough for the jobs that are available. But then you'll have unhealthy emotions and maybe even unhealthy feelings, and physical sensations. And that will lead to also maybe negative behavior, like maybe you're going to start eating too much, or you're going to stop looking for jobs. You're going to just try to ask for money from the government or something else. These you have to change in order to get out of that triangle of cognitive thoughts and emotions and behaviors being all influenced one after the other in any order, in any direction. So let's think about something a little more complicated, like maybe some specific disorders. There's many different disorders that we see in a population, and some can benefit from cognitive behavioral therapy. Not all of them, of course, but let's think about anxiety. So in anxiety, a person is usually very worried about something else happening to her or him, and they cannot control that anxiety. And this anxiety, anxious thoughts, spill into anxious behavior and feelings. So this cognitive triangle of thoughts, feelings, and behavior are easily seen in anxiety. So something that we can work on. Another one that could benefit is depression, when the person is always feeling like things are not going the way they want and they start feeling sad and depressed. Then we have to also help them through cognitive behavioral therapy. Panic attacks, that's not so common. However, the people that experience panic attacks could also benefit from CBT, as well as people having addictions. And of course, addictions is a lot more complicated because the chemicals in your body are making it difficult to just talk about it and try to change your behavior or your thoughts or your feelings. However, in combination, some things with some other medications to stop the feeling of lack of drugs in your body, might work to stop the addiction. Okay, and eating disorders, it's also a common thing that people with eating disorders have comorbidity with other disorders. And eating disorders is just like a behavior that is a consequence of maybe a wrong thought or a negative thought about yourself. Maybe you think like, oh, you're so obese and you need to lose weight. So you start becoming anorexic or bulimic. And then that's, of course, also affecting your emotions because you feel you're not good enough for finding a partner or something. So all these eating disorders are quite complex, and they're based on these three elements: information, that is focused on thoughts, behavior, and feelings. And then we also have other two important disorders that could be benefit from it. And this is phobias. One is phobias, and the other one is here. And let me just see if I can move this so you can see the name of it. But it seems that, yeah. And the other one is anger. So anger is something that people experience sometimes when they cannot control themselves. We know that anger is related to violence, and if you get very angry, you might become very violent. So that means that if you can control your angry thoughts, then you'll be able to control your behavior and avoid the emotions that are accompanying this. So it's really good to use CBT for anger management, and there's many anger management techniques that the CBT has developed. Then we have phobias, and I was telling you about Macon Bound, but I forgot about someone else that is Wolpe, although he came from a behavioral perspective. Then his ideas were taken over through systematic desensitization to try to deal with phobias in a very thoughtful way, or using the reason. And in that way, it's just only changing your behavior by conditioning or reinforcement, but through using your thought processes. And of course, phobias are linked to very strong emotions, usually negative emotions. So it's good if we can reduce phobias overall. Okay, and then I mentioned that we were going to talk about some ways to deal with disorders, of course, with any problems, because sometimes we don't need to be already having a diagnosis of a mental disorder in order to be able to benefit from CBT. So, for example, if you just have feelings of stress, and then you feel like, oh, I'm not able to control them through my thought process, And because you've been going to CBT or going to behavioral therapy, then you'll see how your mood improves. So if you improve your feelings, that improve your thoughts, that improves your mood, and at the same time, you keep on growing on your helpful thoughts, that will change your behavior, and you could use certain relaxation techniques to achieve all of these. So it's just an example of a situation where there's not a real disorder, mental disorder. However, CBT is helpful for stress as well, stress management. So here is a list of some of the main techniques that I used in CBT, and of course there's many more, but I will focus on this one. And tomorrow I'll show you in the next slide. So apply relaxation. So as I mentioned before, this is for lower issues like or lesser strong issues like stress. So if you apply relaxation, then you'll feel better with yourself, and that'll be able to calm you down. Your emotions will be less negative, and then you'll be able to go through the difficult moments of your life and then continue. Journaling is another technique that is used in CBT because when you write down what is happening with you, when you see the changes, when you understand your own thought process, then you're able to control it and change it. And for sometimes we just live in the moment or too fast, or we're just living in the past as well. And you're not aware of all what's happening and triggering your thought processes or your emotions or your behaviors. If you see the link between these three elements, then you'll be able to tackle that and change it. As I said before, for phobias, the sensitization, and in this case I mentioned Wolpe developed this technique of systematic desensitization that is like a way to gradually get closer to the element that is your phobia, in this case, for example, spider. You are arachnophobic and you cannot deal with spiders or, let's say, rats or snakes. And you want to deal with it, of course, some people don't care. But the ones that are feeling too anxious and overstressed with these phobias, and they go to therapy, they use CBT techniques like systematic desensitization, and gradually they'll be able to approach their fearful object. Other people want to just set goals. They feel like their life is a mess and they are a little bit lost. So they want to set goals. In that case, CBT could also help. It's very structured and it gives you hints within it, also time frames, etc. And we also use cognitive distortion examination. So in general, we tend, not always, not everybody, but people that are all the time anxious or worried or with difficulties in their lives, they might create distortions. And you have to examine them. You have to analyze them, be aware of them, and try to change them. So this cognitive distortion examination is a technique that helps clients be aware of their distortions and change them. Guided discussion, it's another one that is really helpful if you do it together with a counselor or psychologist, and then you'll get a discussion that's a lot more richer because you're focusing on the elements that matter the most. And then through this discussion, the idea is that your awareness, your ability to think about yourself will help you to change either the thought pattern, the behaviors, or the emotions, or all of them in order to feel better and be healthier, mentally healthier. And you can also create rewards. This is coming from behaviorism. And the idea of rewards is that you maybe need some motivation. If you cannot find it internally, internal motivation, then you can use it externally through rewards. So you can reward yourself for accomplishing certain levels of, let's say you have an eating disorder issue, and at least for today you ate enough calories, so you can reward yourself for being able to complete a day going against your inner or a reward for not getting so angry today. So any rewards could be useful. Of course, they have to be related to your issue, your problem, and then you can work with a counselor to move it. Some other ones. Well, I mean, what I meant about applying relaxation, it comes from mindfulness, and mindfulness, it's an approach that was taken from Asian countries, eastern side of the world. And they are very much aware and interested in the mind, the mindset, and how we can be mindful of our thoughts, our behaviors, our emotions, and in that way we can control them, deal with them, and have their neutral. And I said already journaling. So the other one that I was missing is exercising. So even though exercise is not exactly what you could do in a CBT session, they recommend exercise as a way to also deal with your whole body experience, because exercise will eliminate toxins, but also increase serotonin and dopamine levels in your bloodstream and many benefits. And that will also lead to more well-being. So these are in general CBT techniques, and I hope you enjoy it. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.